What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Danny and Bush coming at you, and it's officially week one. You guys will be watching this on Tuesday. That means we have 2 days until my Tampa Bay Buccaneers, world champions, play Danny's Dallas Cowboys on Thursday Night Football. So we're done with kind of mock drafts and sleepers and breakouts and all the superlatives that we talked about last week. So we're going to get into our final flag plants, basically our final bold predictions on the 2021 NFL season. We're going to do 8 from the NFC, 4 each, and then from each division, and then 8 from the AFC later today. You guys will see that video. So, Danny, how you doing today?
Yeah, doing well, and excited. Obviously, you guys can see new whole setup here. I officially moved in for my university house, and classes are starting Thursday, baby. So we got football season starting, we got school season starting, and Bush at the same time has just been doing what he's always doing. Am I right?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm still stuck in the basement making fantasy content, but we're going to hit the intro, and then we're going to get right into these bold predictions. As I mentioned, we're going to go through division by division and give a bold prediction for each division, usually fantasy related. And we're going to start with a division close to Danny's home in the NFC East. Do you want to start this off, or do you want me to start it off?
I could start it off, and if you guys already saw my must draft breakouts video, you would know this is my number one breakout candidate, and that's going to be Antonio Gibson, running back for the Washington football team. And my bold prediction for him is that come this time, 2022, come the time where you're drafting your home leagues, you're drafting your work leagues, Labor Day weekend, baby, Antonio Gibson's going to be a top 5 pick. And the reason why is the potential role increase we can see for a talented, efficient player of Gibson's stature is tremendous for 2021. I mean, we're talking about last year, a guy that was a top 5 point per game running back prior to his turf toe injury, despite spending one total snap on third down in the first 10 weeks of the season, despite having a limited overall role in terms of a 3-down opportunity level on the Washington football team. Antonio Gibson was producing as a rookie, as a raw third round converted wide receiver. And the way I'm looking at it going into this season is that he's already worked all offseason to work on his pass blocking deficiencies that kept him off of third down last year. They've been talking about all offseason. They want to get him into a Christian McCaffrey workload type of role. And this isn't a guy that didn't produce in the receiving game because he's not able to. This is a guy who wasn't able to produce in the receiving game because he wasn't on the field to do so, because his receiving acumen in college is enough for me to say that if he's able to get a 70, 75 target workload, we could be potentially looking at one of the better, more efficient receiving backs in the league, coupled with the fact that with Peyton Barber getting released, I expect the touchdowns to keep staying high on what should be a much improved offense. So, Antonio Gibson, top 5 pick, 2022.
Yeah, and you'd have to imagine he probably finishes as a top 5 running back in fantasy this year to be a top 5 pick next year. And I mean, we could see it definitely happen. I've talked about it before, but this was a guy that was a top 5 running back as a rookie at a new position with JD McKissic on the field, not playing on the field on third downs, with a terrible quarterback revolving door that they had in Washington. With Fitzpatrick coming in, this offense should be much improved. I think this can be an offense that is legitimately a top 12 offense in the NFL. And the usage we've seen from Scott Turner, from Ron Rivera, of their running backs before, and the skill set, the size profile that Antonio Gibson has, the athleticism, the receiving ability, all that kind of points to the fact that we've been on the Antonio Gibson's going to break a track all offseason this year. And we are very, very confident in this guy going into 2022, obviously. So my NFC East prediction is that Devontae Smith leads all rookie wide receivers in all 3 of the major categories: targets, yards, and touchdowns. I think this is going to be the clear-cut number 1 receiver after his rookie season from this draft class, better than Jamar Chase, better than Bateman, better than Waddle, better than Elijah Moore. Unfortunately for Danny, I know he's going to have an Elijah Moore take on tomorrow's or later today's AFC version of this, but I think Devontae Smith has so much opportunity in front of him. There is like quite literally nobody on the Philadelphia Eagles offense that is worthy of targeting. Zach Ertz is towards the end of his career. He's not a very efficient player. Dallas Goedert's going to be splitting time with him, so those tight ends are going to kind of eat into each other. Jalen Reagor posted one of the worst perception separations versus man coverage that Matt Harmon's ever seen. I don't think he is going to do much of anything this year. Quez Watkins is a nice dart throw, but I don't expect him to actually significantly eat into Devontae Smith's targets. This is a guy that, despite missing a couple of weeks of camp, as soon as he was on the field, he was the number 1 target in the offense. He was the number 1 receiver in the offense. And I expect a 120, 130 target type of rookie season out of Devontae Smith, 1,100 yards, 6, 7, 8, 9 touchdowns out of the guy. Because when you produce it that way in college, even with some of the guys that you're competing for targets with, what he was doing at Alabama, this is a guy that is going to come into the NFL and produce right away. Route runners translate. We saw it from his teammate Calvin Ridley his rookie year. We saw it from Justin Jefferson his rookie year. We saw it from guys like CeeDee Lamb when Dak was on the field. Route runners translate, and Devontae Smith was bar none the best route runner in this class.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you mentioned Matt Harmon's reception perception for Jalen Reagor, when on the flip side, him and the guy I'm going to mention later on produced some of the best reception perception numbers he has seen in college. Over 90th percentile against man, over 90th percentile against press. I mean, Devontae Smith is an absolute baller. We saw what he was able to do throughout his last collegiate season, especially in that national championship game where he had 280 yards at halftime. I mean, that is the type of talent we're looking at with Devontae Smith. Steps into a situation as a ready-made route runner separator, as you mentioned, on a team that needs that type of presence in the receiving core, needs an alpha to step up, needs a guy that can create space for an inaccurate Jalen Hurts to really get the ball too. I fully agree that Devonta Smith, in my opinion, has that top 30 value right now with a potential top 20, top 15 type of outlook if he hits the ceiling in fantasy football. Fully agree. Devonta Smith, despite being an Eagle, and I absolutely hate the Eagles, is going to do wonders in fantasy football for 2021.
Yep, for sure. So from the NFC East, let's move on to the NFC West, and a team that we've talked about at a big time length this offseason. And one of the guys that we've been championing all offseason. You should have imagined that we were going to bring out a bold prediction about our guy, Trey Lance. But in my opinion, Trey Lance, the bold prediction that I have is that he's going to start at least 12 games. So he's going to be on the field probably from week 5 on, and he's going to be a top 8 fantasy quarterback from the time that he's starting games. We all know, if you guys don't know, Trey Lance is a guy that is a dual threat quarterback. He's not just a mobile quarterback. He's not just a guy that can run. He is a guy that should run, because he is one of his best skill sets. His best attributes as a quarterback is his rushing ability. He's a guy rushed for over 1,000 yards his only season as a starter in college, rushed for 17 rushing touchdowns those 2 seasons, the first full season in 2019 and then the one game he played in 2020. 17 rushing touchdowns for the guy. He has weapons all around him in the passing game. He has Ayuk, he has Samuel, he has George Kittle. All these guys are great after the catch. They're going to make life easy on Brandon Ayuk, as will the play calling of Kyle Shanahan. And we've already made the parallels between Robert Griffin III's rookie season and what we expect out of Trey Lance this year. So I think we're going to be getting a guy that is a 600-700 rushing talent at the quarterback position, maybe 6 to 8 rushing touchdowns, and also a guy that we think can put up big time numbers in the passing game. I don't expect Jimmy Garoppolo to hold him off very often. This is not an Aaron Rodgers situation where they were at 25th in the draft and Trey Lance fell to them and they're like, hey, we had this guy rated higher. Let's pick him and we'll sit him because we have a great quarterback in front of him. No, they were aggressive. They had the 12th overall pick initially, traded 3 ones to get up to pick 3 overall. They are not going to be putting this guy on the bench much longer than a couple weeks, in my opinion. The second Jimmy Garoppolo falters, the second they have a low-scoring half, a low-scoring game because of Jimmy Garoppolo, Trey Lance is going to be in there. And I expect that to be week 3, week 4, week 5 of the season.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Again, I mentioned it with my breakouts video with Justin Fields, how having a rushing quarterback, especially in 4-point passing touchdown leagues, is just such an advantage. And Trey Lance, similar to Justin Fields, has that athletic gift, has that mobility, has that rushing usage, rushing potential that we crave. This is a guy that is physical, is fast, is an athlete, is used in a capacity where they've already used him throughout the preseason in RPO style type of plays, in those read option type of plays. I mean, we've seen guys coming across the formation, fake, boom. Raheem Mostert getting space in the open field. I genuinely think that Trey Lance getting inserted to the offense not only makes this offense flow, but also as a result makes Trey Lance such a threat from a ground level perspective. Again, 2.5 times more valuable points if you rush for them in terms of rushing yards, 1.5 times more valuable in terms of rushing to passing touchdowns. Trey Lance has the opportunity on a yard per game, touchdown per game basis in terms of his rushing to be a 60 rushing yard per game, 0.8 rushing touchdown per game type of quarterback. And at that point, it is hard to not be a top 8 quarterback, despite the fact that Trey Lance might not start the first 2 games. He's still a guy that I'm stashing on my bench, particularly if I have a veteran option to pair with him. So I love Trey Lance. You guys already know I love Trey Lance. You guys know that he is our quarterback 1 in Dynasty of this rookie class. I have no qualms about that take.
Yep. no disagreements there. Now we're going to stay on the 49ers. We tried to come up with another hot take that wasn't 49ers related in this division, but I mean, it's hard. We gravitate towards this team for a reason, because with the Cardinals, you kind of know what you're getting. Hopkins and Kyler Murray. It's not a hot take to tell you that either of those guys could finish number one at the position. We didn't think that was spicy enough. So what's your take on the 49ers backfield here?
Yeah, and I mentioned it, inserting Trey Lance will open up running lanes for these running backs to really prosper. My take is that Trey Sermon is going to be the highest scoring running back in this entire division. Yes, ahead of the likes of Chase Edmonds, Chris Carson, and Darrell Henderson. I truly believe that Trey Sermon's potential in this Kyle Shanahan scheme is tremendous. And yes, this is going to be a committee. I understand that. If those of you that are going out and saying, oh, this guy's hailing a committee back as a potential highest scoring player in the division, yes, the reason being, it's a Kyle Shanahan committee. We saw in previous years, Raheem Mostert was absolutely phenomenal on a point-per-game basis, despite being part of a committee, a 15 opportunity game type of back that was still producing as a top 15 point-per-game fantasy back. The reason why I think Bryce Sermon is the more valuable of the San Francisco backs is the fact that as talented, as efficient as Raheem Mostert is, he's a 29-year-old running back coming off multiple injury-plagued seasons. And Trey Sermon has already shown throughout the preseason, he's got 3-down capabilities. He's got a goal line role. He's a big, sturdy, 230-pound back. And if he's going to finish as the highest scoring back in the division, I think this guy is going to rush for 10, 12 type of rushing touchdowns. Again, I mentioned Trey Lance coming in, opening up the lanes. If that's the case, if you're on the goal line and you see a big, talented, physical running quarterback, similar to the Cam Newton effect, you're not going to pay attention to that running back, and Trey Sermon will make you pay if you're lightening up your box to defend against a Trey Lance. So I'm excited. I think Trey Sermon is going to be a baller. Kind of mix them up because they're both named Trey. Go figure. But the battle of the Treys in that San Francisco backfield is going to be one to watch, and they're both going to be extreme fantasy producers for fantasy in 2021.
Yeah, and back to the RG3 comparison. Well, who was
Alfred
a top
Morris,
10
baby.
running back with RG3 in his rookie season? It was Alfred Morris. So I definitely could see Trey Sermon if he's able to take over this backfield. And like Danny said, I don't expect this to ever be Trey Sermon's backfield 80% of the opportunities. If Raheem Mostert's healthy, whoever else is there is healthy, the maximum amount of opportunities that you're going to see a guy
60.
like Trey Sermon get is 60, 65% of the time.
Yeah.
He's going to be the guy getting the carries, guy getting the receptions, but he is, as of right now, the favorite to lead this backfield in targets, and he's the sturdiest, like you said, he's the goal line type of running back. So he's going to be getting the two most valuable areas of this offense, and if this offense is good, then that goal line role should be very good as well. So to the NFC North, and this is a guy, again, I've been really high on this guy all offseason. I think a lot of people are sleeping on this dude because this was a top 5 running back last year, and a lot of people are just willing to take the cop-out answer that he had an easy schedule, and that's why he did it. But David Montgomery, my hot take is that he is a top 8 running back this year in fantasy, and he outscores guys like Nick Chubb and like Joe Mixon and like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, all of which who are going ahead of him in drafts right now. And if you guys have already drafted, I'm sure they went ahead of him in your draft as well. So with David Montgomery, you're getting everything that you could want out of a running back, basically. When you look at David Montgomery's situation, he has, much like Trey Sermon, a mobile quarterback coming in who's going to help him open up lanes. And David Montgomery is going to be without Tariq Cohen for at least the first 6 weeks of the season because Tariq Cohen is on the PUP list, still recovering from the torn ACL that he suffered last year. David Montgomery showed a 3-down skill set last year. He was a guy that was running the second most routes in the NFL, only behind J.D. McKissic when he was given the opportunity. And David Montgomery has that ability to be a 300 carry running back and also receive 60-plus targets. And he has a monopoly on the goal line in his offense. And if that offense is very good with Justin Fields under center, maybe Justin Fields is like an offensive rookie of the year type quarterback this year, then David Montgomery has double-digit touchdown upside and has a legitimate chance to be a 50-60 reception back as well. So I think a lot of people are underrating the ceiling with David Montgomery. Everybody knows he's got a good floor from a volume perspective. But this guy was legitimately good last year as from a efficiency standpoint, elusiveness, breakaway runs in the passing game. This was a legitimately efficient running back last year. He took a step forward in his career as the second-year running back that he was. And this is a guy now with a situational upgrade that could see his ceiling even peak higher than the RB4 finish that he had last year.
Yeah, and I fully agree on David Montgomery. I think this is an underrated talent at the running back position. And you mentioned a couple days ago, I forgot, it might have been yesterday, the true bell cow workhorse type backs in the NFL. And the main names you think of are the Saquon Barkleys, the Dalvin Cooks, Christian McCaffreys, Joe Mixon, Ezekiel Elliott. But the one that nobody really talks about is David Montgomery. Again, with Cohen being banged up, He's got the receiving workload available to him. And I like Damian Williams. He could probably spell him 8 to 10 touches per game, but this is still going to be a 80+% opportunity share back. They have talked him up all offseason. They want to get him 25 opportunities per game. And in an offense that I genuinely believe could take a step up with the introduction of Justin Fields, particularly in the run lanes for David Montgomery. We saw this guy produce as a top 5 finisher down the stretch. And we've talked about it in the strength of schedule videos. We talked about it in the overall running back rankings videos, but David Montgomery has kind of the best of both worlds working with him in terms of opportunity, talent, and potential scheduling. I agree with you here. David Montgomery is the most slept on workhorse back in fantasy football.
Yeah, I totally agree. Speaking of a guy that is slept on in fantasy football, it's pretty hard to sleep on a guy going in the first round, but people are still going to do it anyway. So the reason that me and Danny both have this guy in our top 5 of our overall rankings is because he has the potential that Danny's about to outline with his bold prediction.
Yep, and I've talked with people have talked with me about how they've gotten Davante Adams at the tail end of their first round in their fantasy drafts because the running back thirst is real.
I got him at 9 in my home league.
Unbelievable, but the fact is, my bold prediction on Davante Adams is this guy posts the greatest wide receiver fantasy season since 1997. For those of you who are unfamiliar, Randy Moss, his 2007 legendary Patriots season where they ended up making the Super Bowl, obviously 18-1, is the current highest scoring fantasy PPR season of wide receivers. You guys will see the graphic on the screen, but in that season, Randy Moss put up 385.3 PPR fantasy points or 24.08 PPR points per game on a stat line of 98 receptions, 1,493 yards, and 23 touchdowns. And for those of you who are unfamiliar about last year with Davante Adams, his PPR points per game was more than a point higher than that Randy Moss season. He averaged over 25 PPR points per game when on the field, 18 touchdowns in the 13 and a half games he played. And the reason why I think he can beat this number is, first of all, everybody's going to mention the narrative, that back-to-back, run it back, last dance type of narrative with the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers is there, Davante Adams there. They want to make magic again and potentially go for a Super Bowl run. I genuinely think that the touchdown range of outcomes for Davante Adams, his minimum may be 15, but we're not talking about minimum here. We're talking about ceiling. We draft for ceiling. I would not be shocked if Davante Adams ends up breaking the touchdown record of all time in a season for wide receivers and ends up being that 25, 26 point per game scorer he was last year, but does it for the full 16, 17 game workload for the 21 season. If you have Davante Adams, he is genuinely going to be, in my opinion, the most valuable player in fantasy apart from Christian McCaffrey. I genuinely see it this year, and it's going to be a treat to watch. If you have him, make sure you're already counting your winnings because I don't know how this guy escapes the first half of fantasy drafts.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think this is a guy that, unless you can see a legendary scenario in with realistic outcomes, not even like an Antonio Gibson, Najee Harris, like you can't pass on Davante Adams. The only running backs that I'm willing to take over Davante Adams, if you guys haven't drafted yet, there's only 4 of them for me. There's 3 for Danny. There's only 4 of them for me. And it's Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, and Saquon Barkley. Now that we know that Saquon sounds like he's going to be healthy for the start of the season. So those are the only 4 running backs I can take over Davante Adams. In a full PPR league, I definitely don't even hate the take that you would take Davante Adams in the top 3 or 4 overall players. So this is a guy with really legendary upside, 25% like win rate upside at the wide receiver position. I think whoever wins the Best Ball Mania 2 contest on Underdog, whoever wins some of these other big best ball contests is going to have Davante Adams on their team, because I do think he is that big of an advantage at wide receiver. And I don't think it's outlandish at all that he could break the receiving touchdowns record. And for anybody that is concerned about Aaron Rodgers' touchdown rate going down, his touchdown rate has been historically high because he's one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history. And if his touchdown rate goes down, that affects Rubber Tunyon. That affects whatever ancillary pieces in that offense that we're talking about. That doesn't affect Davante Adams because he's the go-to guy in that offense in between the 20s, on the 5-yard line, on the 2-yard line, whatever the case is. Davante Adams is the guy in that offense. And I don't expect any kind of touchdown regression to hit him if Aaron Rodgers does experience it. So the NFC South, the final division that we're going to be talking about in this video, I am not going to make a Tampa Bay Buccaneers take. I definitely could have said something like Mike Evans is going to lead the NFL in receiving touchdowns, which is definitely in the range of outcomes as well. But what I'm going to say instead is I'm going to go to the Atlanta Falcons side of things. And I'm going to say that Kyle Pitts breaks this curse that everybody has about rookie tight ends. The rookie tight ends haven't been good. in fantasy since freaking Mike Ditka in 1961. Like, that was literally the last time a rookie tight end has been great in fantasy. But I will defer to the statement that I've been saying all offseason, is that there has never been a rookie tight end like Kyle Pitts. And Kyle Pitts, in my opinion, is going to be a top 3 option at the tight end position this year, and he's going to outscore George Kittle. Now, I'm not going to draft him ahead of George Kittle. This is a bold prediction, but Kyle Pitts, to me, when you look at the offense in the Atlanta Falcons system right now, Calvin Ridley, you got to set aside 160 targets for that guy, because he's going to be phenomenal this year in fantasy. But outside of Calvin Ridley, this is still an offense with a bad defense that they're working with. They should still be a team that passes the ball 600 times, and there should be absolutely no reason why you give more targets to guys like Russell Gage and Olamide Zaccheaus when you have a guy like Kyle Pitts on the field. Kyle Pitts is in a system with a coach who is a former tight ends coach who has deployed tight ends in a versatile manner before. He's praised the ability that they saw from the Florida coaching staff deploying Kyle Pitts before. And this is a tight end. If you guys have never seen Kyle Pitts play, this is a tight end that was legitimately dotting up a first-round corner, a top 8 overall pick corner in J.C. Horn in college. This is a guy that can play on the outside, in the slot, in the backfield, in line, whatever you need Kyle Pitts to do. He's an absolute unicorn. This curse of the rookie tight end, the reason you're going to see a million people on Twitter say, I'm not drafting Kyle Pitts at his ceiling, he has to hit for him to pay off his ADP. I don't care, because Kyle Pitts is the freakiest tight end that we have ever seen, and no tight end is ever allowed to be compared to Kyle Pitts again in the draft process.
Yeah, and let me just talk about the math of it. You're getting a super efficient, elite yards after the catch weapon like Kyle Pitts. Again, many may call him a tight end. His athletic profile would say that this guy would be one of the most athletic wide receivers in the NFL. I genuinely believe that. Let's talk about the math. Julio Jones vacates 7.6 targets per game. Are we really expecting guys like Russell Gage, Olamide Zaccheaus to really limit Kyle Pitts' potential for, let's say, 120, 130 targets? I genuinely don't see that being the case. Is Matt Ryan going to go out in the field and say, oh, I got this unicorn, absolute marvel of tight end, the best tight end prospect in history? Nah, let me just throw it to my ancillary pieces because rookie tight ends aren't allowed to break out. Like, do you genuinely believe that an NFL coaching staff, an NFL quarterback thinks that way? No, you're going to get it to your playmakers in space. We've seen it all offseason. Kyle Pitts is a freak of nature, and people like going with arbitrary narratives instead of just the math of the situation. Targets are available. He is a talent able to consume them. Don't oversleep on Kyle Pitts. If he's any time falling to you in that 5th round of your fantasy drafts, he should be an auto pick. I genuinely believe this time next year, he's going to be selected in those top 24 selections of your fantasy draft. So absolutely love Kyle Pitts. I have been on him all offseason. This is still a guy I'm comfortable with taking in that mid-4th round area after George Kittle comes off, Darren Waller comes off, because I genuinely believe he gives you that advantage at tight end. So the final take of the video, because we're going to break this off again, this is the NFC, AFC tomorrow, or AFC later today, and that's going to be another rookie. Terrace Marshall of the Carolina Panthers ends up outscoring his teammate Robbie Anderson and scores 10 plus touchdowns as a rookie. And listen, I understand that I have to put a lot of optimism into Sam Darnold for that to happen. He probably has to throw for 25, 30 touchdowns for any receiver on that team to score 10 plus. But I genuinely believe in the role that Terrace Marshall has locked down here as that big slot weapon X type of big, talented wide receiver that Joe Brady was really looking for to complement the yards after catch ability of a DJ Moore with the downfield ability of Robbie Anderson. Terrace Marshall is that big slot that they've been coveting. He's that Michael Thomas glove fit for this offense. And this is a guy that was a genuinely good separator in college, despite also being the best contested catch receiver apart from maybe his teammate in this 2021 draft cycle. I mean, he graded in the 80th percentile against man for a guy that is 6'3", is 220 pounds, and doesn't need a lot of separation, yet was still getting it. I genuinely think this role in the offense, apart from Christian McCaffrey, who was scoring the touchdowns on this team? DJ Moore has never scored more than 6 touchdowns. Robbie Anderson, are we really expecting him to be a double-digit touchdown scorer? No. I think that Terrace Marshall is this guy, and on the back of his touchdowns, he's able to supplement top 30, top 35 type of wide receiver production. And at that point, if he's doing that, the main detractor of this offense will most likely be Robbie Anderson. So I'm just going to go out and say it. Marshall over Robbie Anderson in 2021.
With Terrace Marshall, I definitely agree with the premise that he could be the touchdown scorer in this offense. The one thing I will push back on, like you said, is this is reliant on Sam Darnold to some extent, because it's going to be tough for anybody to score 10 touchdowns with Sam Darnold playing quarterback. From what I've seen from Sam Darnold so far in his career, he would probably need to do what Baker Mayfield did in 2020 when everybody was down on him, thought he was a terrible quarterback after his 2019 season. If Sam Darnold can come out and at least play as good as Baker Mayfield, Kirk Cousins type of quarterback this year, then I think this take is possible. So, I mean, if you guys haven't drafted yet, make sure you take Terrace Marshall in your drafts. If you have drafted already and Terrace Marshall's on your waivers, just pick this guy up and stash him on your bench, because this is a guy that does have that kind of upside, as Danny outlined. What he did at LSU, this is a guy that is a prototypical alpha build, alpha profile with his size, with his speed, with his production. So the fact that DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson and Christian McCaffrey are all there right now, I have a feeling it could all work itself out, right? Eventually, if Terrace Marshall is that dude, he is that guy, then he could relegate those guys down a position, down a peg in the depth chart. He could become the number one in this offense or the number two in this offense, along with DJ Moore, and Robbie Anderson could become more that ancillary deep threat piece that he was in New York. So I definitely, I don't disagree with the take. It's a little spicy. I definitely think that's definitely part of the allure of this episode, though. So I like the take. I think Terrace Marshall has a big time ceiling this year.
For sure, and I'm glad you mentioned spicy. I'm glad you mentioned this is the allure of this episode. If you guys have made it this far in the video, please, I don't want to see all these comments. Oh, these are so unrealistic, yada, yada. Again, we're having some fun. We've done all these breakdowns all offseason. If you actually want more objective fantasy analysis where we bring in the stats, we bring in the breakdowns, just look on our page. We have the must-draft breakouts, the sleepers, the busts, etc., to leave you guys ready for your fantasy football drafts if you haven't already had them. And this is more of a fun piece. This is more, we like these guys. We want to make our claims for them.
Yep. And if you guys have made it this far in the video, comment down below your biggest bold prediction for the 2021 season. This is where you get to stake your claim, flag plant. You can come back in December when the season's over and be like, hey, see, I told you so. I told you this guy was going to be elite for fantasy. You guys can do that if you want. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. We're going to be helping you guys win your championships all season. Like the video if you enjoyed. And if you guys want to support us in any way, you can go to underdogfantasy.com. Deposit using promo code FSE. You'll get both of our draft guides for free if you need them. But at this point in the season, Underdog is going to be running pick'em contests and things during the season. So if you're not already on Underdog, you can get $25 on top of a minimum $10 deposit using promo code FSE. And we'll probably try and find a way to incorporate that promotion where you get something from us as a thank you for using our code in season as well. So peace out, guys, and enjoy your Tuesday.
Why you need the money?